host today. I'm a salsa enthusiast, having taken it up about 5 years ago and discovered this amazing passion and community along the way. We're here at the Sky Lounge of the Emara Olesereni Hotel, and I'm with my co-host, Michael.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael O'Brien. And again, we are at the rooftop at Olesereni Emara. This is a beautiful location, beautiful spot, beautiful bar. The bar ground lights up. It's ridiculous. Yeah. You have to come and check it out. Okay, so I am an Urban Keys dancer and instructor, compa dancer and instructor, salsa and bachata just dancer, plain dancer. I'm not taking any regards into teaching either of those two genres. However, I do love it, and so that's what all this is about. This is about the community, the culture, the dance aspect of it. And of course, naturally, we had to go with one of the biggest people around in terms of the community in Nairobi, Kenya, which is popularly known. Who is popularly known as DJ Ty. Of course, he is with the Nairobi Dance Project. I think on all social media, this is at Nairobi Dance Project. And he has won international accolades, basically in salsa, bachata. Bachata as well? Okay,
wow.
Bachata.
I didn't know about the bachata. I didn't know about the bachata.
Okay, and he's hosting festivals, he's doing socials, and we're going to be getting into all that shortly into the show. Again, this is the Rhythm Tribe. Shooting right off the bat, why are there so few men?
I think, to be honest, dance is really looked upon as a female art form.
Right.
And dance is seen as effeminate. And it's not a place for real men. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the problem actually starts. And a lot of men shy away. They enjoy watching the women dance, but getting on the dance floor is usually a task. So I would say that is one of the main reasons, if not the top reason, why we have very few men in the dancing.
Would you maybe say that there's some men who find it intimidating as well?
Yes, and I think you're very right. I think it's also culture.
Yes.
Because if you look at the history of couple dance, I think the first couple dance is actually the waltz. And the waltz started in Austria. And then after that, of course, religion and culture frowned upon it because dance was majorly in groups and formations. But now this was a new concept where there was close proximity. So of course, religion looks at it as sin. And then, of course, much later is that culture started looking at it as more predominantly as something romantic between two people.
Right.
So I think that's also what the concept has been, that if there is close proximity, there has to be some romance going on.
Oh, it's very interesting that you mentioned it that way because every movie I've watched, whether it's Bridgerton, and of course we're not trying to sell any show over here on Netflix, but every show that we've kind of watched that had these 1930s, 1940s show, they had to have a big hall. Everybody used to get dressed up. There was a dance card, right? The dance card where everybody had to kind of fill in for you to get to be able to dance with the people. And then once that happened, there was supervision involved.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying it's unlikely that they would have done anything already that would have been considered taboo in that community because there were so many consequences to it. But the fact that it had to be supervised and you had to come with your brother or your dad
some
or
kind of chaperone.
some person of chaperone. Yeah. And then now all of a sudden enter this day and age where we feel shy about it, especially as men where we don't necessarily allow ourselves to go to dance with a lady in terms of courting or affectionate ways has changed the community that we know, especially.
Yes, yeah.
Especially for you. Tell us about your introduction to dancing with men and how you found it so far.
So, I mean, for me, dance has always been a beautiful art, even though, I mean, I always enjoyed dancing, but as my kids would say, my kind of dancing was the clap and click, kind of thing. And when they used to ask me, is it possible to dance without clapping and clicking and all that? But, and I never knew Kizomba or Bachata existed, for example, let alone the urban kids and the compas and all that. But salsa was something that I always wanted to get into, but never had the opportunity until my kids grew and left home. And I remember coming to my first social, after my first salsa class. So I think my first salsa class was on a Thursday, and my teacher said, you have to come for the social. And I was like, what, social? I don't know who we're going to dance with and all that. And feeling, feeling a little bit of discomfort because of that proximity, so not being used to that closeness to random guys, and particularly for genres that I had never danced before, bachata and kizomba. Which, it was so funny because when I sat and watched, particularly the really good kizomba dancers on that first social, I was convinced that there must be couples or romantically involved, and because it just looked really, really close. So it took me a while to get comfortable with that, from the point of view of it just being an expression, But in terms of men availability, the more socials I began to go to, the more I realized there would be a mad dash, from women to men. Because, if you're you were going out to dance and you know that the social was only, for example, 6 hours long. And for me, my mindset was, I'm going to dance, so I want to get as many dancers as possible. On socials where there were not enough men, it could be quite frustrating. So for me, it's a question I've always asked, why are the guys, you see the classes at the beginning of the socials, the women outnumber the men by far, which then translates into the local dance scene.
And the frustration is very, very evident on just about as many women as we can see. I mean, you see a few of them. I think it's even worse out of the country, because I remember going for festivals and finding ladies sitting on a couch, arranged in a line, with big frown on their face.
Exactly.
And if you ask them what's going on, they're like, there's no men.
Yes.
And it's very evident and very, very annoying. So which brings in now the aspect, because we've just finished with the cultural aspect of it, which is why men were there before and it was allowed and socially acceptable, to now it's not, it's frowned upon by men, right? In Nairobi, because you've been to South Africa, a few other countries out of there, what's your read on the men specifically, in and as opposed to in and out of the country?
I think men generally, because all scenes are the same as you mentioned. I think it's really more women than men, and to be honest, I think it's just myth and bias. I think it's something that we need to deconstruct, because a lot of the men who, probably some of my students who are looking from the outside and actually work their way in, are like, I wish I started this thing earlier, because now I have really just gotten into it and I'm hooked. So it's usually that first step. And I keep saying, and I think I've had this conversation with you before, I believe that the women actually lead the scene.
Right.
I think the women need to actually look at it as a challenge to get in more men. Because if you look at the women, they actually don't come with their spouses, they don't come with their boyfriends, and all that. So it's a hot take.
That's another show.
We'll leave that one for the end. That's the last part, because that's so controversial in terms of what it is that we believe, the direction of how women influence the men in this community, not just dance, because the majority of this community is women. I would say towards estimates of 60 to 70%. The 30% are the constant men who are fully addicted to dance, and we come with the mindset knowing that we want to come and dance. You'll find a few percentage of them coming in just because they're either curious. I don't want to say perverted in a way, but in a way they don't want to pervert how it is that we pick out the dance, because there's always going to be bad apples, right? And that's an entire full episode on its own. So stick around for that during the season. That's an entire episode on its own. But in terms of how we as men view dancing with women, I think also has a purely cultural sense, because in Europe you'll find them these dances like the waltz and so on, like you mentioned. But then in Africa we have, everything from bend over to South African dances, which a lot of people would say involves nudity. So moving on from the cultural aspect of it, what would you say then got you into dance, and then what kept you in?
Actually, it started in, of course, there's a whole, I've been dancing since I was young. But I think Afro-Latin for me was my gap year from high school to uni. And that's when I watched my first salsa performance.
In uni?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
How long have you been dancing, Chief?
Oof, wow. 15 years plus.
Let's go back. Anyone?
Yeah.
How long have you been dancing?
I keep sticking to 15 years. Last year was 15 years. Next year will still be 15 years.
Okay, and
Yeah.
in terms of genres, which one's been the most, which one's been the least?
It was always salsa with a hint of bachata.
Right.
And then I think once I met Kizomba, I think I became a champion and pioneer of Kizomba. But I keep saying that salsa will and always be my first love. But I love Kizomba, of course. For Kizomba, I think it was all about growing community
Right.
because salsa was really established. So we just tried to pioneer something because right now a lot of people know me for Kizomba. But
I think everybody
knows. Everybody knows me for Kizomba.
And you just see
Yeah.
Kizomba.
Yes.
And then you'll find one advert of salsa. Yeah.
Yes. But Kizomba has really picked on. I think it's a music, it being an African dance. I think, as we keep saying, on your first lesson, you're actually basically dancing.
Yeah.
With salsa, it does take some time and it does take a lot of work, effort, dedication. With Kizomba, the music already sells it.
Here's a controversial way of looking at it. Do you think it's a I don't want to say cultural, it's more, or do you think it's a national or it's an African thing? Do you think it's easier for just Africans to catch on to Kizomba and its music and its concepts as opposed to salsa and bachata, which is obviously westernly influenced? Not that Kizomba isn't, but yeah.
I think, first of all, with everything, I think the music comes before the dance. And for salsa, I think for many people, it's an acquired taste. Same with bachata. People do not relate with the music fast. They can see the dance and it's wow, but the music is, okay, I'm not feeling this. But with Kizomba, I can dance to a Kenya local song, I can dance to bongo, I can dance to an Afro beat. So the music already sells it.
Okay.
And it's danceable too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that you feel has influenced men in the way we are able to join, especially African men, because if I'm new to dancing and I'm thinking this 8-9 years ago, if I would have had that I can dance bongo with Mr. Nice,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
a few gents will not understand, but Mr. Nice was the just kidding.
Yes.
But yeah, if we could have danced with Mr. Nice, Kizomba and so on, or even salsa, if there was a way of dancing that, do you think men would have been more involved? Because every time I mention I'm going to dance, everybody asks the same question, is it salsa? Right? Because they never say Kizomba unless they've actually known about it. They say Zumba. Right? They know
Yes.
salsa, then
Yes.
they know Zumba.
Yeah.
Right? So do you think that has affected us in terms of men joining the community?
Yes. I think, first of all, of course, not giving credit to shows like Strictly Come Dancing, So You Think You Can Dance. I think those help in demystifying what couple dance is. And for salsa and bachata, it's really showy. So I think that's what caught people's attention. Like, yeah, you're turning this lady, it's all. Kizomba is not showy. It's connection.
It's all about the people you dance with.
Exactly. So I think it's showtime, it's showbiz. So I think salsa sells. Yeah. Looking back home, I have realized that even when we used to dance salsa, a lot of people used to just come for the vibe and the ambience.
Right.
But with Kizomba, they figured I can actually maybe do this because they see the two-step. It's just side to side and we're going around. Then after a few drinks, they're like, you know what, I might actually just try this. And they get hooked.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not been easy. I think I think it's also who colonized us. it's the British and really, as we were talking about the connection, it boils down to the basic unit of society, which is family.
Right.
I think very few people can actually say they hug their parents. And I feel like that's where dance actually starts from,
That is
you know?
deep, man. That is
Yeah.
fully deep. Because
Yeah.
I think for you as ladies, it's so much easier to hug your mom, hug your dad. Good night or regularly.
Yes.
I think for us as men,
men, it's
I don't
yeah.
remember the last time I hugged my dad. I honestly don't remember the last time I hugged
Yeah.
my dad. No, we will shake hands, we'll even possibly even fist bump.
Yeah.
But even as much as I've kind of, now that I've joined community and dance, now I'm able to then hug my mom a bit more
Right.
often. But that's
not weird.
It's not as weird.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think it's definitely a cultural thing. Because, for example, and even men on the scene, for example, because I've been fortunate enough to travel to Cuba several times. And salsa dancing, of course, is very indigenous to that culture.
Right.
And that is possibly the only place I've ever gone where it doesn't matter where you walk into, whether it's a club or a concert or even on the street. I mean, there are men dancing everywhere. And in that sort of setting, women will dance a lot with lots of different men. The holding, the groping, the whatever you want to call it is very, you know, again, I used to be, my first trip I was very uncomfortable because I'm like, hey, this guy's getting really close. So it took a while to understand that for them, you know, physical touch, that connection, that closeness is nothing other than expression of the dance. But the other thing I was going to say before I forget was on the local scene, and I guess in a way a factor that might affect, and you guys can possibly answer, why not so many men feel comfortable enough to get into it. I think a lot of it lies on us women as well. And I certainly have been quite guilty of it, where a guy is a beginner, he's not very confident, he's not very good yet. And a lot of women will then be like, you know, gosh, that's not going to be an exciting dance, you know, and kind of shying away from beginners. I'm much more conscious of it now, because I also remember being a beginner and possibly, you know, crushing somebody else's dance, you know, somebody who possibly wanted to dance to that one song that I was going and saying, please come and dance with me. I think I'm much more sensitive to it now, but I do know amongst women, many of us tend to run away from those beginners, which again must hamper or affect the confidence of that guy, and maybe then contributes to their not coming back or dropping off along the way.
Okay.
I don't know what you guys...
Absolutely. Since you guys just want to jump into that subject about women being able to influence our beginners, let's just jump into it. The aspect, I remember how I was when I joined the community. Vulnerable, new, green as all hell. And I had a little bit of salsa background in me. And having left the country, that was all I knew. And coming from a community when back then, I'm talking 2011, 2012, when simply dancing salsa was considered you're pushing boundaries.
Yes.
Now I've joined an international community where I'm told, okay, listen, we're going to teach you 3 moves of Kizomba, and then we're going to throw you into the deep end, where everybody else is just like, hold me, the entire time of the song. And this lady, I'm obviously not going to mention names, but she basically comes in, and I asked her to dance because I had seen so many people wanting to dance with her, so she was pretty good, as far as I could tell. And every time someone would dance with her, they would leave being like, yeah, awesome. So I go and I jump in and I tell her, listen, I'd like to dance with you. And I tell her I'm a beginner, right? I tell her, please, I apologize for your toes in advance. I might end up stepping on them a few times. And the worst thing possibly in terms of a beginner, at least how I could have felt, happens. And this lady stops me mid-song, right? First time ever, walked into it. And she mid-song stops me and like, you need to work on your basics. Looks me dead in the eye and you need to work on your basics. And then maybe I'll think about dancing with you later. I was fully shocked.
Yeah.
I was in pure shock because I'm thinking everybody else is looking at me. I'm new. I'm never going to try this again.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, trying to salvage the situation. And I'm like, thank you. Okay, bye. and I walk and I've never danced with her again.
Yes, of
ever,
course. Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah.
But she's come to ask me to dance a few times after that, and I think out of spite, and maybe this could be petty, I actually said I'm not going to dance with you. No. Right? So I think me with a bit of an ego maybe moved on past that, but I'm wondering how it was for you when you were starting off.
No, definitely. I think first of all, I think we acknowledge that with men, there's already that you're learning something new, and there's the risk that you're going to be bad at it. So a lot of men focus on what if I'm not good, because they're already comparing themselves to the other men who are on the dance floor.
Right.
So that already is a barrier.
That sounds like the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
You go to the gym, you see a guy doing 30 kgs of the first thing you want to do is pick up a 30 kg, and you have no idea how to do a 30 kg.
Very, very true.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's where structure within the community really comes in. And that's why I keep saying, first of all, we throw around the word social, but what does a social actually mean? Exactly. What's the basis of a social? Social means interaction.
Right.
So that's what we try and build, and we also have structure from where let's have classes. Come for classes. Within class, you're within 4 walls. It's a studio space. You feel safe first of all. You know, you're with other beginners. Okay? Then from there, let's not throw you into the social, because there it's probably 50-50. You might be like, okay, I'm in love with this thing, I'm going forward with it, or you might be, this thing is not for me, and you completely draw back. So the practica is very good because it gives you, it's a next step before the social. So that's why for us we really push for come for class, come for a hangout.
Right.
Which is no pressure. Exactly, which is the definition of the practica. No pressure, just come, let's chill, let's hang out. It's the people you see in class.
Right, the regular
because if
faces.
you go, the regular faces, so yeah. So that makes the men a bit comfortable. And then the social part, the hanging out, because that's what we really sell as the Nairobi Dance Project. One of our hashtags is where family lives. Because you can imagine how you are during Christmas at your backyard with your family.
Right.
That's what we want to create. Because there, even if you bust a shady move, it's laughable, and you don't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to die. You know, exactly. Yes.
We have a constant fear of actually dropping a lady in the dance floor.
Yes.
And the worst thing could happen for a man is that you do that on your first time out. I think I've had dreams about it.
Oh, really?
Nightmares.
Nightmares, yeah.
Full on.
So you've not dropped a lady?
No, thank God.
Okay, it's going to happen.
No, so it's like it's really I think the men go through a lot of pressure when it comes to trying to jump in as opposed to the women, and perhaps you could correct me on that.
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest, I really and I mean, unlike you guys, I haven't been on the scene that long, but I really empathize or sympathize with men, because I think, first of all, for the most part, at least from a woman's point of view, the guy sets the tone for that dance. And obviously, the more experienced, the better lead he is, the more enjoyable the dance is for the lady. And leading is hard. I mean, I'm trying to learn how to lead right now. And I mean, you have to be creative. You have to, you're keeping time, whatever it is. So there's that aspect, and I think
just for every other woman out there, just do you mind repeating that small part, just for them to see how difficult it is.
It is. It really, really is.
Yeah.
And by the same token, I have a lot of respect for women who know how to lead as well, because it's not an easy thing. But yeah, I think if women learn or appreciate that fact, and so in scenarios where, for example, the woman is more experienced than a guy, so a guy coming in for his first social who's not very confident, who really wants to try, I think it's the responsibility of the follower, of the lead, of the woman to be kind. Yeah, and I think a woman who is slightly more experienced than the guy can help to guide him even on the dance floor without telling him, he needs to learn his basics first, or that kind of thing,
Kindness is so important.
And by, you know, when I flip the scenario around, I remember when I first started, I have never forgotten the guys who were kind and patient with me. You know, I have never forgotten, you know, because I was already very self-conscious. You know, if a guy came to ask me to dance, I'd be like, oh, I'm just a beginner, I've only had 2 classes or whatever. Then he'd be like, no, we all started from somewhere. Yeah. I've never forgotten those guys. But like you, I've always been very, okay, I try not to say no to dances if somebody comes to ask for a dance, but it definitely affects my energy when I've had a bad experience with someone who made me feel like a beginner or that he was bored. Because I've had dances with guys as well who are literally, you can see that they've switched off. You can see that they're just going through, you know, they cannot wait for the song to end, which made me not feel very good, you know? So yeah, so that's what I would say.
So I guess that's the key to take from there. Be kind, women, and for guys as well. Anyone who's a beginner, basically. The next episode we'll be going over to women, obviously in the opposite sense of that coin. But just to finish up with this other one, what do you think we should be able to then get into bringing in better quality? Because, I mean, it's one thing to say we want more guys.
I think it's just classes. And it's classes. And going back to her point is then, but it also gets to a point where the students now start knowing that, okay, this is a good instructor.
Yes,
you might go around, but you might be like, okay, I'm not growing and this, probably I need to try this. So a good product will always sell itself. Yeah. But I feel like if we all stick to what we are good in, then we all grow.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting because now we end up finding students becoming products of their teachers.
That's true.
So even sticking to men particularly, I would feel every time a guy comes into my class or who comes to the dance floor and I'm watching him dance, I can tell he's being taught by someone that I know.
Absolutely.
I've seen his particular style. And I think exactly. You'd find there's people who come in. If the teacher wears a jacket, I must wear a jacket.
Or the shoes. Those shoes are always a good tilt.
That's a really starter pack. Okay. So to be able to keep the men and the quality top notch, I think it comes with diversity. I don't think I think sometimes teachers are a bit afraid of letting their students go. Of trying to go and find the good things, keep the good things I've taught you, go and learn what it is that you don't particularly enjoy, but keep the most important values, you know, which is kindness, being able to dance with people, improvement, constant improvement. Respect, very, very important. And so I think it can also go in with that formula which is the classes, the socials, then the festivals. That the teachers have a lot of responsibility and the artists have a lot of responsibility to be able to keep the men accountable for what it is that we require them to be in the community. Because if one of my students is going to go and do something fishy on the dance floor and everybody's going to complain about them, it reflects on me as an instructor.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of less go teach and let go. I think some version of mentorship needs to be included to be able to keep men of good quality.
Yes.
And not necessarily kick out guys who just don't know any better. I think you know, there's guys who have, again, cultural context in it. They've come from the clubs, and the clubs is you go and you do whatever it is that you feel like you need to do or whatever it is that you want to do. When they don't realize that there's decorum in our community. Yeah. Just before we finish up with that, now I wanted to find out with you perhaps on a last quote that, you know, everybody else could be able to take away in terms of what you'd want the guys to be able to keep, or new beginners coming to join in should do in terms of a paragraph. What would you tell them?
I think for new beginners, I would say, just be brave and be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be brave enough to go and ask for those dances. Be brave enough to just walk to random people to ask for dances. Again, I flip it around. When I first started, I didn't know anybody on the scene. And my attitude was, I've come to the social to dance.
Right.
So I will walk up to people and ask for dances. If I'm turned down, fine. But if I'm not turned down, then it's an opportunity to dance. And I think guys should not be afraid and not be intimidated to even ask the women that they see on the floor that are dancing quite well.
Right.
They shouldn't be, because that's the other thing. I think a lot of beginners will approach the girls that they see are beginners, because then they feel, okay, you're a beginner, I'm a beginner, and then they're comfortable. But I think men shouldn't be afraid to approach the more experienced, better dancers. That's what I would definitely say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Words to the wise.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think for every beginner, it's very important for them to understand that everybody they see on the floor was once a beginner.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think once you realize that, then I give you the next one, which is practice makes progress. I feel like dance is muscle memory. The more you do it, the more it sticks. I keep giving my students an example of myself. I'm not a natural dancer. I'm a trained dancer. And it's because I worked at it so hard that I am at the level that I am.
He's not talking about YouTube.
Exactly.
No, so seriously, listen, we have to even address that, because this thing of thinking you've gone for class because you watched a few YouTube
I know,
episodes
exactly.
is not learning. It is getting information.
Yes.
Well, that's amazing. I think that we've covered some clear grounds there in terms of what it is that we require men to do, not do, be, and not be coming in. Especially, I think we need a lot more men. So we're formally inviting you, any new beginners who are coming in to be a dancer, looking to join. Of course, you can be able to catch either of us, and we'll talk about where exactly you'll be able to catch any of us. Right now, we want to talk about the festival that's happening. The festival is happening on the 24th to the 26th of February 2023. COVID Elisha election season. Listen, all you guys who are in Nairobi, wanting to be coming to Nairobi, looking for a place to come and kick it, everybody's working from home, so you have no excuse. Come and work from Nairobi. Okay, we want to get into Kizomba, Nairobi Kizomba Sensasao Festival, right? Tell us about it.
Okay, so we have an annual festival. This is the Nairobi Kizomba Sensasao. Sensasao, again, being Portuguese for sensation. So we have a 3-day event, music and dance. The participants immerse themselves in Kizomba, Semba, Kompa, Urban Kids, and Afro music and dance.
Right.
So it's a festival that happens every year. We invite international artists with local artists as well. So we start with on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, full day of workshops on Saturday and Sunday, themed parties, and then of course there's a safari for the internationals who are going to be joining us.
Okay, so there's both tourism and there's dance.
Event tourism.
Okay, event tourism. I like that. That's more culture. That's what we're getting into. And this is Kizomba, not Zumba.
Not Zumba.
Right? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can understand. No, I don't. I
I just have to also say that
it
it is a really cool. I mean, I had just started. What I mentioned earlier, I had just started salsa, which is when I stumbled into Kizomba.
Yes.
I came as a newbie. That was my first ever experience, and that's going back to what I was saying. I think the skill of teaching is very crucial or rather the delivery of it. And the teachers that you had that year were fantastic. This was 2018. I'm sure they're just as good. The ones
Tell us
coming up.
about them actually this year. So who do you expect to be finding on this year's tour?
Yeah, so as she said, thank you very much. 2018, we had amazing teachers. Those were actually my teachers who actually took me through teaching training, and this was in Belgium. This is Kizomba Lab, France and Zara. And when I was there, of course, I saw what they're doing in terms of their regular socials, their monthly events, and their festival. And I figured, you know what, why not do that back home? So every year, we actually select instructors who we do have personal relationships with or who come highly recommended from our close circle. And this year is no different. We have Carlos and Anna, amazing dancers. I think right now they are one of the top 3 Kizomba instructors going around the world teaching. So in Kenya, we're actually fortunate to have them here. We have Vasco. It goes without saying, he's been to the UAE. He travels all over Europe. He's been to Africa. I've taught with him in South Africa. He's an amazing DJ, amazing Semba teacher. And we have, of course, Patricia Cardoso, who will also be teaching a ladies Jinga workshop as well. So that's also amazing. And not to forget our local artists. We have Ronnie, who's been at the forefront of pioneering Kizomba, not just in Kenya, in Africa. There's Dave as well, who's young, but is really one of the new blood, so to speak. He's a fresh blood, and I think he's one guy to really watch out for. Amazing. For the DJs, we have Dan the DJ. We have our own DJ Dio, who will be on the decks. There's DJ Tai. We have Mutati, who's actually a Kenyan who's based in Australia.
Yes.
So he's coming back home. He's actually coming with a delegation from Australia. And he wants to show them home. He wants to go with safari with them. So yes, we are also about the showcasing the international, but also giving appreciation to the local artists who are the ones who actually create this community for us to be able to actually invite the local artists. So I think, honestly, the local instructors are the MVPs. Yeah, because they do the heavy lifting, and this other guy is just the cherry on the cake.
So we're looking forward to having you over at the festival. Obviously, we're going to be having mad times there, and I think all three of us will be there.
Absolutely.
And considering that this is the first show, I think it's gone pretty damn well.
Yes.
And so I'm really excited to have this project go forward. And Marie, with you, we're going to be pushing a couple more episodes out, so stay tuned for that. Alan,
Yes.
Yeah.
appreciative, mad
Sante
appreciative.
sana. Yeah.
You have been
Thank
doing
you very
some-
much.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We couldn't do it without you.
This is the start of something. I don't even think you guys understand what this is going to be. I think let's sit here a year later, and I'd hope to be here same time next year and be like, wow, you guys, this is where we started. This is where you are. Exactly.
Of things that were happening during this episode and all that from the next episode when you chalk it up. Yeah? I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Alan.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon
Yes,
at the festival.
definitely.
Yeah?
Thanks, Alan. Yeah.
Once again,
Yeah.
Okay.
DJ Ty on the decks. You come and find him at Nairobi Kizomba Sensasao Festival. He will be on the decks. He will be teaching naturally, and it's going to be a crazy time. In the meantime, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, the like button, the share button. Again, it's everywhere, somewhere. And we'll obviously see you at the next one. In the meantime, remember what we've given you today. All the new guys, all the old guys, all the ladies. Be kind, be respectful, be brave, and let's all dance. We'll see you next time.